Hello. This is OverDrive on TSN 1050. We are now on TSN 2. Hello, TSN 2. My name is Brenda Dunlop. Happy to be alongside Dave Feschuk as we enter hour 3 of this, my first time ever appearing on the 3-letter. Kind of a special day for me, man.
Great to have you.
Yeah, great to have you alongside me. We had some very good conversations about this exciting time of year that it is the MLB AllStar break, which is part of the reason certainly why I am here. I do wonder how the boys are consuming or taking in tonight's festivities. We had Steve Phillips on, who's very confident. Either he knows the market very well, or he strikes me as someone that he wouldn't tell a fib just because to play to an audience.
Yeah.
But he's convinced that not only will Vlad win tonight, but that Vlad's going to have a great second half of the season because of this home run derby experience.
Right. He's going to be. I love the phrase Steve used about how Vladdy's going to be hunting the bottom of the baseball tonight in trying to get that launch angle grooved so that he's going to go from the guy who hit 48 homers only a couple years ago when he was an MVP candidate to a guy who is on pace for this season only 25. But we saw the last time, Brendan, that Vladdy was in the home run derby. He had a great second half, and I think probably that's a big part of the reason why Vladdy opted to be in Seattle tonight for the big event.
Everyone's talking about the record. This always comes up every time you kind of isolate one specific event or one specific talent. He doesn't have to do 91.
Yeah.
Just go out there and just be good. Go and have
fun. Good in the moment. Exactly.
Just be good in the moment. Pete Alonso's the favorite, though. FanDuel's got Pete Alonso as the favorite to win it.
Makes sense. And Julio Rodriguez cannot be underestimated. He's the hometown guy. It's the only thing I'm sad about tonight is we're not going to see Ellie De La Cruz, who is like, to me, beyond Shohei Ohtani, this 21-year-old kid that's just tearing it apart for the Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah. He's
not in the home run derby because I guess he turned down the invitation, and he's not in the All-Star game. I don't get it.
That All-Star game, though, man, it's in general, all sports seem to struggle to win over a majority of fans. Most people say that the Pro Bowl is the one that's most for the players and those in that NFL experience and not for the fans at all. Highly regarded as, I think, the worst. Baseball is regarded as the best because it probably replicates a real game the most.
It does.
In comparison.
It does.
MLS All-Star Game this year, they've gone back to the original format with a collection of MLS All-Stars playing some storied team from Europe in their preseason. So this year it's Arsenal, who have a lot to prove because they let the Premier League title slip away and Man City win and went on to win a historic treble. And you think you've got a group of MLS All-Stars, as has been the case in previous years when they've done this format, that have a lot to prove themselves individually and want to show well.
Yeah, It's interesting. They're always toying with the format of these things, right? I mean, the NHL's toyed with, they've gone to the 3-on-3 thing, and they've tried to make it more digestible. The one that I heard about baseball that I kind of liked was the idea that you go, instead of American League versus National League, which is the old traditional way, and there was a time when it actually counted. It was home advantage in the World Series was on the line in the All-Star game, which was absurd and bizarre, but it was real. I like this idea somebody had, and I don't even know who it was, but there was this idea that you go old guys versus young guys in the baseball all-star game. And I think that part of it was the fact that 21-year-old Ellie De La Cruz, this phenom for the Reds, is not in the game. And this idea that, if you're trying to promote the sport, which is essentially what the all-star game is, right? It's not, I know it's supposed to be, it's about awarding the guys who've had a good first half with a moment in the sun and goes on people's resumes, and maybe it's used in contract negotiations occasionally, but ultimately it's a promotional tool. And the idea that this kid's not in it, 21-year-old guy from the Reds who, stole second, third, and home on the weekend in one amazing play, or a sequence of amazing plays.
He's so good, though, he probably could do it in one play.
Yeah.
If you read that headline, you'd be like, I don't know how functionally that worked, but it sounds like it makes sense for you.
Third and home were all in one play, essentially. But, yeah, it was incredible. But we've been hearing so much of the sort of young guy versus old guy chit chat. We heard it in the Raptorland, how Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam were kind of a little bit at odds with some of the younger guys on the team. Most at the forefront of that would have been Scotty Barnes, who had his moment, of having maybe a little on-camera tiff with Thad Young, the oldest of the old heads in Raptorland. And we've seen it in a bunch of sports where the young and the old don't always get along, right? And so the idea that you'd have, let's just play the young guys versus the old guys in a game I think there might be some draw to that.
I think you're giving Major League Baseball, I know you said this wasn't your original idea, but you're amplifying it. You're giving Major League Baseball maybe $1 billion idea here.
That could be fun.
Steve Phillips said that he saved his ownership $30 million. They equated that. In today's market, that would be probably about $350 million. But I like that, especially you look at baseball that's desperately trying to keep hold of a fan base because a very large, older fan base is naturally dying off. That would be a great way to kind of engage both. I did the morning show first up with Matt Cause on Friday, ahead of Alek Manoah's start, ahead of that heavily anticipated performance against the Detroit Tigers, in which he impressed a lot of people.
He did.
And he said Alek Manoah is the person to connect the generations of football of baseball fans.
Yeah.
Because he appeals to the old heads who love the classic, who love the grinder that he is, loves the passion.
Wants to pitch 9 innings if he can.
Exactly, yeah.
Not about load management.
Wants to be dragged off the mound, and then he also appeals to the young person because of his personality, his flair, his swagger, and just his attitude.
It's a good take by Cos.
He's a likable guy. Speaking of likable guys, someone that you know very well from this station, whether you listen or watch, it's Leo Rautins joining us on the line. Leo, how are you?
I'm great. I appreciate that intro. That was nice.
It's great to chat with you. Are you home in Florida? Where are you twining and whining this evening?
I'm actually in Toronto. I'm actually still here, and I had taken care of a few things, so I'm enjoying the city.
Funny. I think you and I have had a couple encounters, maybe at the arena, but very much in passing, as when we were on opposite sides. You would not know this story, but I have a German Shepherd. It's a mixed German Shepherd dog. And I used to live on the lakeshore, and there was one time where I turned a corner, and someone looked at my dog and said another name, and I said, "Excuse me," and then looked at me and said the name again. And I said, "Is that Leo's dog?" And I said, "Leo who?" And he says, "Leo Rautins," as if I should have known that's who they were asking about, or now why they would have thought I'd be walking your dog, or that my German Shepherd looks as much like a Leon Berger as he actually does. That's my Leo Rautins connection story. Yeah.
Well, my dogs are kind of popular on the waterfront, so it's actually interesting because Leon Berger's, because of their black mask, a lot of people think there's some German Shepherd there.
Yes,
but there isn't.
Yeah, that's what he was a rescue, and that's exactly what they said. Like, oh, he's a Leon Berger mix. I'm like, that's such a rare breed to have over here. I don't know if that would be the case. Now, if you're to believe the doggy DNA test, the swab that you do with the mouth. He's a predominantly German Shepherd. He's got all of those traits, my friend. Not exactly where I thought this conversation would go off the start, but I guess that's expected when it's as unpredictable as I can be.
Any dog conversation is a good conversation, right?
Much like the basketball conversation with you, my friend. But yes, definitely. On the topic of the NBA making some changes here, I would love to get into the NBA Cup with you. Dave and I had a lot of soccer conversations before. And this has been an idea, this in-season tournament that NBA heads have talked about for a long time, that there seemed to be a lot of pushback for. Didn't seem to be that many people involved in NBA circles or in fandom that really thought this was a great idea. But what say you, Leo Rautins, the NBA in-season tournament?
Well, if you think about it, if you take out the finals, like the 2 dates in Vegas, right? What are you really doing? You're taking, Tuesday and Fridays and putting a little bit more oomph into those games. That's really basically what it is. And you're hoping guys approach them a little bit more with a little bit more. You're hoping that there's a little bit more value to those games. And it was, I was watching NBA TV and, Dennis Scott, Isaiah Thomas, they made a pretty good point too that, during a regular season, you're using especially early on in the season, you're going to use a lot of your bench players and a lot more players in the lineup. And for those guys, the money is going to mean a lot more than it is for the stars, right? Mm-hmm. So on the Tuesday, Fridays, you're going to get, I think you're going to maybe get a little bit harder play, harder effort, which is sad that we even have to say that. But the reality is one of the reasons this thing is in place is so guys play more minutes and guys don't sit out games. So, I'm hoping it's something good, but, that's the value I see in it.
But Leo, you played a lot of basketball after your NBA days in Europe, and there's cups over there, right, where they actually mean something. And it's a soccer thing, but it's also a basketball thing. Like, do you think over time this thing could become something that's maybe it'll take 20 years, but you got to start somewhere. And do you think it has a chance to become something of what it is in Europe? Because that seems to be the model here, or is that too far-fetched?
It's hard to say because in Europe, like within the league, for example, in Italy, you have A1, A2, but you also have the Italian Cup. So you get a champion within the two leagues. I know when I played in France, you had this Tournée d'Aides, where your top four teams had a tournament for top four spots towards the end of the season. But it's different. It's the way North Americans look at it. It's like the World Championships. The World Cup doesn't hold a heck of a lot of weight here like it does in Europe, or the rest of the world. But the Olympics, where you're going to stand up there with the gold medal and it's broadcast all over the place, that's a big deal to North Americans. So, we do have differences in the way we approach things. I think the fact that they're just used to those tournaments, and it is a little different because it's not like A1, A2 here, right? I mean, the Eastern Conference plays the Western Conference regular all the time. So it's not like in Italy, A1 and A2 don't compete against each other. All you have is that tournament. That's it, the Italian Cup, where they actually meet each other, unless they happen to meet in some kind of no, they won't even meet in a European Cup because they're two different divisions. So, I think that's why it's got more weight over there,
Promotion and relegation is an idea that would never work in North American sports because of all of the money involved, because of the money that ownership groups invest and then are expected to see in return. But this move specifically, and why I knew that this was going to happen eventually, this wasn't for us. This wasn't for the North American NBA fan. This was for a global audience. This is for that European audience that pays attention and, is interested, but maybe only watches the playoffs or watches a game that fits comfortably in their time slot. But now they've got something else that resembles what they know, both basketball and in soccer, and what they think just makes sense. So it's kind of like it was the NBA's way to hook an international audience more, and maybe a bit of a compromise to kind of get closer to the way things are run in the rest of the world.
Well, I mean, the NBA is global, right? And you know that the games in Vegas are going to be hyped up big time. And I think once the teams, whoever the teams are that get to Vegas, I mean, it's going to have a pretty good feel to it. And once you're there, you're going to want to win those games, right? The only thing is, again, you're giving a little bit more weight to some regular season games, which, hopefully, I guess the pessimist in me is saying it's kind of sad that you got to give some weight to those games to get guys to, want to play more or not miss games. So that's kind of sad to me for the amount of money that's coming in nowadays. But, hey, if it works, it works. We'll see.
So, Leo, I haven't spoken to you since the NBA draft and the Raptors selecting with the 13th overall pick, Grady Dick. 6'8" guy that can shoot it, Leo. Kind of remind you of yourself a little bit, maybe?
Nah. Yeah, hopefully he's going to be a lot better than me, that's for sure. But, look, here's the thing. If you look at a lot of guys like Grady, right? Yeah, I'm thinking of certain guys like say when I look at his size and athleticism, I think of maybe a Kyle Korver, a Mike Miller with a 6'7" frame, right? And those guys had really good careers. And it's not that they came out and started out with a bang either. But if he's got the work ethic and he's got the right attitude, he's got the body, the frame, and the jump shot to forge out a pretty good career. He's confident. He's got some cockiness to him, which he's going to have. And if he really here's the big thing. There's been some other shooters, and I won't throw their names out not to embarrass anybody, but if you want to make shots, there's something you got to do. And when I say that, a lot of people are going to say, well, footwork, follow through. No. If you want to make shots, you got to defend. Right. Because if you don't defend, you're not going to be on the floor to make shots. Because when teams see the weakness, they're coming at you. And if you're in a liability, you're going to get pulled out. And that's where you really got to have that commitment. Like I have had conversations with young players coming into the league, and I said, if I'm a young player, and this is when J.J. Redick was playing, I'd ask him what he wants. $10,000. What do you want for a week? Teach me what you know. Teach me how to be an NBA player. Because here's a shooter that came into the league and really was almost out. If he wasn't a lottery pick, he would have been out. But he learned the game. And the one thing he learned is you have to be a part of the defense. And he wasn't a great individual defender, but he was a great team defender. He knew what the other team was running. He knew what every matchup was going to do. He knew all that. And he gave you great effort every time on the floor. So even though he wasn't a great defender, he wasn't a liability every time he was on the floor. And that means he could stay out there, park himself in the corner, and knock down threes. So if I'm a guy like Grady Dick, I want to make sure that I do everything I can to stay on the floor because I know I can make shots, but I got to do the other thing.
So what's the email address that these incoming NBA guys can email you to for your $10,000 training package?
Hey, trust me, if they come to me, I'd take it in a heartbeat.
Leo, I got to ask you about Pascal Siakam. So many rumors swirling around right now. Do you think he's going to be on the Raptors opening night roster, or are we looking at this 2019 core being fully dismantled and gone?
He may be on the opening night roster, but where there's smoke, there's usually fire. I mean, there's so many rumors out there, and they're really coming in left and right. I think, and the reason I'm saying it might take longer because. Messiah and Bobby Webster, there's a lot of, in their eyes, obviously there's a lot of value to a Pascal Siakam. His numbers, all-star merits, and so forth. So they're going to try to get whatever they can to continue to build, take this team where they want it to go. So, I don't, you're not just going to move them just to move them. So it's got to be something really good. But at the same time, he's not a bad player to keep, but he's not going to be your number one guy. So you have to have the right pieces to take the pressure off and continue to tweak this team. So he's a very talented player. He does so many good things. And in my mind, too, is sometimes I wonder, when you look at certain players, you start wondering if just a change of scenery would be good, right? Good for your team, good for Pascal. Because with all the good things here, there's also things that have been tough for him here, and sometimes maybe those things are what ultimately are going to hold you back, or maybe keep you from getting to that next level in your game, or for the team, what you can do for the team. And sometimes that change of scenery is what you need and the team needs. So I think there's a lot of thought going into this. And I'm as interested as anybody as how it's going to end up.
Well, it's interesting you say that, Leo. I totally agree with your take that, this Pascal Siakam is a guy who could use a change of scenery. The Raptors could probably use a change of personnel and a change in focus. And yet, it was on draft night that Chris Haynes at TNT reported that, there was a sentiment that from Pascal's camp, you assume that Pascal was not going to be entertaining the idea of re-signing with a team if he happened to be traded to one, which would ultimately be my interpretation that Pascal is attempting to dissuade the Raptors from trading him and maybe not sabotaging. Sabotaging would be too strong a word, but certainly not trying to encourage teams to trade for him. What did you make of that?
Well, that's on his side of it, right? He's saying, I want to be here. Yet from the Raptors side, they have to do what's best for this team. And so now I'm sure that if some situations come up and they have a deal, they're going to try to put Pascal in the best situation he can be in. You're not just going to send him somewhere where he's going to be miserable. So I think that, at some point in time, both parties are going to have to sit down and look at that situation, if there's something on the table. But for Pascal, I think that he's got to realize, too, if a team's – and put it this way, if it was that strong, you wouldn't be hearing as many rumors from as many teams, right? And, again, we're talking about rumors, and you can, say what you want about them. But there's a lot of them out there, so it doesn't sound like his people are dissuading people from looking into it. Like what we're hearing with Lillard is the exact opposite, right?
Right.
Exact opposite. So that tells you something, too, if you want to read into it a little bit.
Who would you rather have going forward? Damian Lillard or James Harden?
Oh,
As any
on.
NBA team.
First of all, I don't want. I've been pretty vocal. I would not want James Harden on my team. I just wouldn't. I don't think you're going to win with him. And he's not the young guy he was. And I'm a firm believer in something that when you don't take care of your body, and it's been documented over his career where he's let himself go at different times, your body catches up with you. Mm-hmm. Right? This is it's a tough grind. And his body is slowed and has not, been the same in the last couple of seasons. And I just think he's a difficult guy to win with. So now Lillard, he's also an interesting, when teams talk about, when Portland's trying to get the farm for him, you got to look at his number of games. Like this guy's in the last 4 or 5 years, he's not played full seasons. He is getting older, right? And even though he's a tremendous talent, I'm going to say this. You look at some of the teams he's had on Portland, and I'm not buying into this. He's had nobody to play with.
Yeah.
I'm not buying that one. Yeah. He's had some good teams. And where have they gone? Right? So you're talking about a guy that he's going to come here and change the fortunes? No, it's not going to happen. Is he going to go to the Knicks and change their fortunes? No, it's not going to happen. Miami's got some good players. If he goes in there, he could be a nice fit for that team, but not if you got to give away half the team and 92 first-round picks. So, I think you really got to be careful, and you really got to. Sometimes the NBA gets, you get a name and you get enthralled with the name. You start listening to fans, but the ask is kind of crazy, and you really got to take a look at the guy, his age, his number of games played, and what he's actually done and who he's played with. Because I'm not buying into all the garbage people are throwing out about, he hasn't had anybody. Come on, that's not true.
Hey, speaking of great fits, Leo, Victor Wembanyama seems like a natural fit for the San Antonio Spurs, who've had all these great big men through their lineage. He made his Summer League debut over the weekend. Not so good game in his first appearance. Really nice game in his second. I'm not sure how much you took in, but what do you make of this kid? And so much hype, and yet what are the chances he can deliver in his rookie season in your mind?
Well, he's a special player, but you know how tough the NBA is, and the hype is over the top. Don't get me wrong, I love this kid. I think he's a unique player, a special player, but the hype is over the top. And he's found out what the hype is all about, because you have one game where your first NBA basically game in the summer league, people are ready to hang you. So, that's what he's going to be walking on all season long. It's going to be the best, the worst, the best, the worst. So he's got to deal with all that. But when you look at his game, he's a unique player. He's he's got an opportunity to really change the game in a lot of ways, just like maybe a Steph Curry did, shooting the basketball. Here's a 7'3" guy that can, put the ball on the floor, shoot threes, does all kinds of stuff. He can be, and at the same time, he can be a rim protector, right? He does a great job around the rim. So you got to worry about his body, if his body's going to be able to hold up. And here's the thing, you're in San Antonio. It's not like you're joining, one of their great teams, right? You're joining a team that's in kind of a rebuild. So there's not a lot of guys that can take the pressure off of you. And that's going to be a challenge for him. So I think he's going to make an impact. I think he's going to, hopefully, if he has a healthy year, I think it's going to be a really good year. But as far as San Antonio making a big hit in the league, it's not going to happen this year. You got to continue to build around them. But I tell you what, if I can get him and I can build around him, I'll take it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's why they gave Pop 4 more years.
5-year extension at age 74, Leo. How about that?
$80 million.
We all dream of that, don't we?
Leo, this was great. Thanks so much for joining our team on this Home Run Derby Monday. I hope the summer treats you well, and I look forward to chatting to you again soon.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Leo.
Leo Rautins, our TSN NBA analyst and Raptors insider.
Think about that. 74 years old, you get a 5-year deal. Oh, isn't that incredible?
But there's so few people, like him in general. I think what's more impressive, what are you more surprised by? The fact that that's the deal that just makes sense for the Spurs, or that he wants to keep doing this?
I think there's only one player on this planet that he was going to do it for. Like
Yeah.
if they got the second overall pick, he wasn't doing this.
Yeah.
It seems to be the sentiment coming out of San Antonio. But this kid is so special. Wembanyama is so special and has the chance to do so many great things that he's like, I got to be on board for this. I was there for David Robinson. I was there for Tim Duncan. I got to be there for Victor.
I can't leave now.
No.
He also strikes me as someone, I think that he likes wine, right? He's a big wine guy.
Oh, does he like
He
it?
likes
I'd
expensive,
say love would be the better verb.
fancy and expensive wines. More than Leo, though? I should have.
Oh, that's actually,
Leo.
that'd be an interesting
I don't know.
conversation. Those two talking wine, that could be something.
I do wish that we had a bit more time with Leo. I didn't get into my Portuguese wine interests as well.
Okay.
It's,
You got a wine, you're a little junior cause? Is
no,
that cause in you?
not junior cause, but
Okay.
I did have a phenomenal day on the Douro River in northern Portugal, which is the wine region up there.
Right.
And let me tell you, that one special day up there will turn you into a wino very quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I understand. My understanding is if you happen to be in the company of Greg Popovich, and I've never had the pleasure, but those people I've known people who've dined with Greg Popovich, and apparently the wines he orders are beyond expensive and beyond phenomenal, and no one will ever have them again because they can't afford them. But Pop's banked a few bucks over the years and doesn't mind splurging.
I had Jakob Pertl on First Up on Friday, and I asked him the same question, like, what's the expensive bottles? He goes, I don't know, I've never seen them. We don't see the bill.
Oh, not for the players.
The bill, no, in general, when they go team dinners, the
Right.
bill doesn't even come to the players. Pop just takes care of the bill.
Yeah.
Is he just like sending it to the finance department, or
Probably.
is he just probably?
It's the NBA, man. Money. There's just money flowing.
Pop, like what
money flows.
a dad experience it would be to be coached by Pop. This is Overdrive. Much more to come here. We'll talk with Mark Roe as Wimbledon continues. You're watching Overdrive on TSN2 and listening on TSN 1050 in the iHeartRadio app. This is Overdrive, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Overdrive bringing you a couple of different voices today than you're used to hearing, and certainly that have their namesake on the title animations. My name is Brenda Dunlop. Happy to be alongside Dave Feschuk as we get into our last half an hour before we cross the pond and talk a little Wimbledon. Are you a big tennis guy?
I like tennis.
You've covered it a lot.
Covered it quite a bit, yeah. Covered it quite a bit. The Rogers Cup, whatever they're calling it nowadays, the National
Yeah,
Open.
something. It's
Canadian Open, let's call it.
up there at York.
I've
That's what I
covered
call
that.
it.
The thing at York, yeah, over the years, many times, and covered at the Olympics a few times. Yeah, it's especially now that you got great Canadian talent.
Yeah.
It was a long time where we had good Canadian talent, but not guys that had, sort of, and girls and women who had the expectation of being world-class players in the, vaulting themselves into Grand Slam contention. So
Right.
things have changed, man, and it's a fun generation to look at here.
We had the soccer conversation a lot in the first hour about how you have to turn this into wins.
Yeah.
And in tennis, I feel like that's what hasn't happened.
The next
That,
step.
yes, we've gone from very good players, Canadian players, to great Canadian players, but the wins have not followed.
Great potential that has not been met with performance.
Well, let's toss things over to someone who has a great potential to turn this last half hour into something very exciting. Mark Roe, our TSN analyst, a tennis host for this chapter at least. Mark, how are you doing, man? Nice to chat with you.
I'm great. Great to be on with you guys.
I think, you and I have only met once, I believe, and Noodles was there, hilariously, and it was at a very famous bar on King West that did not survive the pandemic. You remember this?
It did not. It is a place that is called, how do I say this? It's deceiving the name because it's not actually under the ground.
Right, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Very professionally done, Mark. That was
Nice
outstanding.
job, bro.
There we go. If you can't figure that out, then I have nothing for you. Sorry.
I think very, very similar to Vancouver. Is it the Roxy that everyone has a story about? Not necessarily specifically the Roxy flu, but everyone's like got some stories from the Roxy.
Most ex-NHL players
have
stories about it.
In Toronto, I think this bar, most Major League Baseball players in Toronto, this bar that's not actually below the surface entrance. I think a lot of people have those stories. So. Yeah. Well, Mark, the big story as far as Canadian tennis is concerned is that the Canadian contingent's run at Wimbledon has ended. Bianca Andreescu and Denis Shapovalov not making it to the second week. What did you make of how their tournaments came up short?
Yeah, I think that there's a mix of positives and negatives that come out of it. I think I heard you guys before I came on, and Canada, the Canadians are in a bit of a funk. Now, the bar's been set really high, and there's a lot of countries that would love a Grand Slam winner, which we do have one, and we've had a couple that go to finals, and it's kind of like when it rains, it pours, it seems. Like it was 2 years ago I was at the U.S. Open, and we had a finalist, Leila Fernandez, and a semifinalist in Felix Auger-Aliassime, and they at times made it almost look easy. And now you're just dying for, I thought Dennis would have been in the quarterfinals. The knee didn't hold up, and he might need to shut it down for a couple of months. And that's the real tricky thing with him. So I think with the two, if we're focusing on the four core players, and we're not talking about the Maple Leafs, Felix and Dennis are a little concerning because we're talking about injuries, and they haven't been able to fix these injuries, which have been lasting for months and months. I think with Bianca and Layla, they're on the verge of something a lot better than what we've been seeing from them over the last few months. I thought Bianca played really well. I thought she was playing really well in March when she injured her ankle, and that we thought was going to cost her season. So hopefully she can get back and do that consistently and not have to play an Ons Jabeur in the third round and get seeded at the U.S. Open and for tournaments moving forward, because really she should be a top 10 player. It's just a matter, again, of staying healthy and consistent results. And I saw a lot from Leila Fernandez that made me believe, or at least believe their camp, what they're saying. Yes, things are starting to turn around, especially on a fitness end where they were recovering from a broken foot for a while, and their fitness coach abruptly left their team. I don't know the whole story of that, but it seems like they're on the right track. So those are the positives. The men are going to take, I think, a little bit of more time to see those results.
You talk about the injury problems that Felix and Shapo have had, Mark, and we saw Milos Raonic return from a long battle against his body to have a triumphant moment at Wimbledon before losing in the second round, hinting that this could be his last go. At age 32, this sport can grind you up and spit you out at a relatively young age. What do you make of that? What in your mind is the likelihood that this is the last time we see Milos at a Wimbledon?
A great segue. On the topic of injuries, Milos Raonic, because his whole career, he's been great, and then another injury is around the corner. And first off, I thought it was just great seeing him back. We were all worried that we would never see him again, and he was like Kaiser Soze, and we're like, he vanished into thin dust. I have two different opinions. Vasek Fossil was in studio with me. He doesn't buy that this is it. He thinks that he looks as fit as ever, and he's moving around really well. That being said, talking to my colleague Mark Masters, he saw Milos after that second round barely able to walk around. And the shoulder was a problem because he just isn't played enough, and he relies so much on his serve, and that's got to be so taxing on every joint. But, his shoulder was a problem, and then because of that, he's compensated, and the knee's a problem. So, Milos is a different player. Like, he's a different kind of person who's got a lot of other interests. I never thought of him as being the guy that's going to try to play till he's 40. So I'm leaning towards the fact that this would be his last season, whether that's at the National Bank Open, whether that's at the U.S. Open. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope we get to see another, season or two from him, because as we've seen in the first matches that he's played in his two tournaments, he's serving as well as he's ever served. And if you have that, that's the most important shot in the game, and you can win a lot of matches that way.
Mark, what do you think it is about I know it just feels like Canadians, to me anyway, get to this point where they go from good to great, as Dave mentioned, and then injuries just derail things. Like, I don't know if they're having the same conversation on Swiss Talk Radio, that every time you've got a bunch of tennis stars, that the injury bug is going to come and derail things. But at every single turn, with the exception of Layla so far, the Canadians have had to deal with devastating, career-altering injuries.
Well, even Layla, she broke her foot last year. And hasn't been the same player since. She reached in the quarterfinals of the French Open a year ago. Yeah, I think if you go through the tour, you'll find that everyone has had some sort of serious injury. It's how you cope with it. Look at the best players in the world. Novak Djokovic, and he's the first one to be able to tell you, because he loves to tell you, but he's had a lot of serious injuries, And he has found ways to overcome them, and who knows how he's been able to do it. But, Rafa Nadal, everyone said early in his career he's never going to be able to maintain this because of the way he plays and because of his body. And he's had to shut it down at times, and then he comes back and just wins more majors. So I know those are the extremes, and it's tough to compare, the Canadians, but certainly when you think of Milos, when you think of Bianca, those are two players who have been injury-riddled. I think less so with Felix and Dennis. They've been relatively healthy over their careers, and it's just caught up to them this year, and hopefully it's just kind of a one-time thing, and they'll get another long run. But I get it. I get that it's frustrating, and I get that we have the appetite for more success because of what they've been able to accomplish in their young careers, and luckily they're still in their early to mid-20s.
So, Rowe, you're obviously a big part of the coverage on TSN of the championships at Wimbledon. You talked about Djokovic, and yeah, he's battled through some injuries and other personal turmoil. And yet, here he is again, age 36, the heavy, heavy favorite to win his 24th Grand Slam at Wimbledon, into the quarterfinals now. We'll play tomorrow. What are the odds? I mean, I know what the odds are, but what are the odds in your mind, Rowe, that there's somebody in this final eight that can actually give him a run and keep him from getting that next slam?
Yeah, if you're expecting to win a fortune by putting money on Novak Djokovic, just don't do it because the odds are so, he's such an overwhelming favorite.
Yes.
And even on this surface, he is close to Rafa's dominance on clay. And I think it's more so that grass is only a month of the season and fewer players play on it. And he has obviously mastered it. He is so motivated by the numbers. He loves the fact that he has 23 majors. And again, who wouldn't love that? But whenever you talk to Rafa and Roger, they kind of brush it off. And I don't know if that's just they're trying to be modest or not. Novak is like, yes, give it to me. And an 8 title, which would tie Roger Federer, who is synonymous with being the king of Wimbledon. You better believe that he is motivated by that, and he can't wait to get 9 and then 10 and crush them all. Like, he has got a chip on his shoulder that is massive, right? It's the size of his whole country of Serbia. And it's not only going to take an incredible performance from someone to beat him, it's going to take, I think, something bad happening to Novak. I don't know if it's, he has a bad fall in a match. I don't know if he comes down to earth. It's going to take something really weird for Novak Djokovic not to win this title. And maybe I'm killing the suspense of everyone tuning in next Sunday. But I really do think it's his title to lose, and it's almost a foregone conclusion.
Well, yeah, to be fair, I mean, you're looking at the FanDuel odds. He's minus 190 to win the whole thing. And yet, if you're going to, be the devil's advocate here, he is not the number one seed. The number one seed is a young man named Carlos Alcaraz, Rowe, who's the tender age of 20. And you have to believe that one day, he will unseat Djokovic, or he or someone of his generation will unseat Djokovic, who is almost old enough to be his father, could be his father, I guess, if something went wrong in the teenage years. But
I was going to say, if there's some wild high school years.
Right. But, I mean, like, how far away in your mind is Alcaraz? He is the number one seed. We know that doesn't mean much, but it still means something. And how far away from beating Djokovic do you think Alcaraz may be right now?
I think he's close. I don't know if it happens on this surface, but I think he's close. I thought he was close at Roland Garros, and we saw 2 really good sets, and then the moment got to Alcaraz, and I'm sure he'll learn from that. But, everyone's concern was, okay, but can he win on grass, or can he at least win on grass at this stage of his career? And he won Queen's Club 2 weeks ago, which is one of the big tune-up events, and now he's into the quarterfinals and just beat Matteo Berrettini, who reached the finals of Wimbledon 2 years ago, who loves this surface, and he plays a power game, and it's suited for him. And Alcaraz has beat him in 4 sets. So I think, the idea of him not being able to win matches on grass is thrown out the window. Can you beat him on it? And they would meet in the final this time if they do get to that point. Can you beat him on that stage with the pressure of playing for a title, which Novak Djokovic always seems to rise to that occasion. So I think he's close again. And maybe it happens at the U.S. Open. I don't think it happens at Wimbledon, though.
Mark, this was great, but there was one thing you said a few minutes ago. You said we don't know how Novak Djokovic is getting over these injuries. We do know. Horse placenta. That's how he's recovering
Right.
from all these muscle injuries. It's the old horse placenta that's popular in that part of the
Gotta
world.
save that stuff. Very valuable.
Well, there's been a few marquee North American athletes that have been rumored to head over there for some treatment of that variety. I think wasn't Tom Brady?
That's possible with Brady. You never know.
It wouldn't surprise me. The amount of money and resources that he puts into his body. I don't know if it's still true. Before COVID, there was like a small bus on the grounds that was Djokovic's like post-match like personal locker room, which obviously led to a lot of suspicion, which guys like Dave Feschuk can investigate and write about. But that like he like the science, the sports science of Novak Djokovic is something that's going to be studied for decades.
Yeah, I think it would be. It would be quite a book, Dave. Maybe you can pen that one.
Yeah, that would be, studied, investigated, probed. I don't know. I mean, look, the fountain of youth is an expensive thing, is what I've come to understand. And some of these guys seem to have the money for it. So it's an amazing development in the world of sports.
This weird medal on his chest during Roland Garros, and no one knew it, and he wouldn't really give anyone an answer. Like, if that's not a little suspicious, I don't know what is. But anyways,
Mark,
all the credit to him.
All the credit to him, man. Well, credit to you for coming on Overdrive with us on this Home Run Derby Monday. Much appreciated. Enjoy the rest of the tournament, and I look forward to chatting with you again, my friend.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Mark Roe, tennis host. Bet you didn't think we'd go down that road. Bet you didn't think you'd hear horse placenta.
No, that's a good one. I had,
today.
that one kind of slipped my mind of all the crazy.
Of all the treatments?
That one was not really in my wheelhouse, but that is very true. Yeah, the horse placenta fad was pretty big there for a while. Like the deer antler spray that swept the PGA Tour all those years ago. It's there's some weird stuff going on out there. But I'll tell you what, we can talk about how do these guys stay healthy. And look, I'm sure they're dumping a lot of stuff into their bodies that costs a lot of money and is, hard won through science. But with Djokovic, though, I'm not sure anything tops the fact that this guy is just mentally stronger than everybody else. And I don't know if there's not a placenta PRP shot, drug, performance enhancing or otherwise that can make you mentally strong, as far as I can tell. Maybe he's got it if it is.
Maybe it is. Well, who knows where we're going to take things next, Dave? We got one more block to go. This is Overdrive on TSN2 and TSN Radio 1050. This is Overdrive, about to put a cap on the first show of the week. My name is Brenda Dunlop. I've been riding alongside Dave Feschuk the entire 3-hour run here on a Monday. Now, of course, it is time for today's best bets, powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. The Grappler. What are your picks tonight, my friend?
Okay, for tonight, obviously not a whole lot going on in the sports calendar. We got the Home Run Derby, and we've got NBA Summer League, so that is where the focus is going to be.
Oh, boy.
Pete Alonso can get him at plus 330 to win the Derby, the winner in 2019 and 2021. I'm sure wanting to make up after falling short last season. So, yeah, got Pete Alonso to win the Derby. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., you can get him at plus 240 to hit the longest home run. His bat is, listen, all these guys can just hit for massive power. But, you look at the exit velocity of so many balls that Vlad Jr. just blasts into the outfield, into the infield, and wherever. I don't think it's a stretch to say that he could hit the longest home run tonight. So anyways, that's what we're rolling with. And then, in NBA Summer League just underway. You got the Phoenix Suns and the Miami Heat. I am taking the over. That's 178.5, and you can get that at minus 114. Today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today and find thousands of ways to wager. Please play responsibly. Must be 19 plus and physically located in Ontario.
Impressive stuff. To do 3 hours of radio on TV on Home Run Derby Monday is one challenge. But to do a bets segment on a night where you only have the Home Run Derby and day 3 of Summer League?
Yeah.
Just wait until Thursday when there is no All-Star Game, no Home Run Derby. Are there still NBA? There's got to be NBA Summer Leagues by Wednesday
that'll
and Thursday.
That'll still be going.
And I guess on Wednesday I've got the Genesis Scottish Open to look forward to.
You got the ESPYs too. You can bet on the ESPYs.
Can I actually do that?
Bet on the ESPYs. Amazing.
All right, looking forward to that.
I feel like did the U.S. women's soccer team lead the ESPYs in trophies? Like lead the ESPYs in ESPYs?
Good question.
I feel like they must lead the league in ESPY awards.
Wouldn't doubt it.
I don't think that the U.S. women's national team is going to win the World Cup this
You
year.
don't.
Just saying that. No.
That's against the chalk.
I'm
That's
not
an underdog slot.
I'm not saying it's going to be Canada, though I would be surprised but not shocked if it were. But I do think that the U.S. women's national team reign will come to an end down under in Australia.
Love it.
Yeah. Well,
They've won it 2 in a row now. They're
looking for 3. They're looking for that
three.
famous three-peat.
Yeah.
Winning one is hard. Winning again is a lot harder. Winning 3 times, there's a reason that doesn't happen, Dave.
I mean, Canada's never done well in the World Cup. They've won, a couple of bronze medals in the Olympics. Of course, they had the crowning achievement in Tokyo with the gold. I mean, what's to stop them?
Yeah. What is to stop them? I don't know. That's another thing we'll have to get into. Did we get to more soccer talk than you expected on our first show today, or fair amount?
We had that crazy game last night, the Gold Cup, man. I was enjoying that.
It was exciting. Well, I look forward to doing this again with you tomorrow. Peter Holland's going to join us tomorrow on OverDrive, and you've got the whole week here, my friend. So thank you for riding with us on OverDrive. Have yourselves a good evening. We'll speak to you again tomorrow.